Hi, it's Erica Mandy here. A quick note. As you can tell, I've almost lost my voice. And because my typical guest host was not available, we're turning to artificial intelligence. It's actually me talking, but in order to make it sound clear for you, it'll sound like someone else because of AI. Thanks so much for giving this a try with us.
Today is Thursday, June 26th. What to know about the next round of talks between the U.S. and Iran. Also, why American pediatricians are already clashing with new vaccine advisors. And what to know about Jeff Bezos' lavish wedding and the protests against it. Plus, we're looking back on 10 years of marriage equality, explaining what's behind the stock market's latest turnaround, and sharing plans for a new kingdom at Disney World. Those stories and even more news to know next.
Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this.
It seems the relationship between the U.S. and Iran is giving a reset. President Trump says U.S. officials will hold talks with Iran next week. The goal is to get a commitment from Iran to abandon all nuclear ambitions. So far, no comment from Iran. And one Iranian official said the U.S. could not be trusted. Either way, Trump says a deal is not even necessary because of the American attacks against Iran's nuclear facilities. As far as the intelligence report that said U.S. strikes only set Iran's nuclear program back by a few months, Trump says that's not true and that the facilities were destroyed. The FBI is looking into how the intel became public. The Trump administration has also decided to limit intelligence sharing with Capitol Hill, saying, quote, "We are declaring a war on leakers." Some Democrats have expressed outrage over this, saying if the president wants to cut off intelligence to Congress, he must be hiding something. This week, the White House also delayed briefings for both the House and Senate on the Iran conflict, but they could still happen. Hackers tied to the Iranian government seem to be trying to do some damage to the U.S. They've targeted American banks, defense contractors, and oil companies this week. So far, they have not caused widespread disruptions to the economy or critical infrastructure. But the AP says some hacking groups are promising to keep up the digital conflict. Some tech experts say there are vulnerabilities in the U.S. that hackers could exploit. So federal authorities have warned organizations to stay vigilant. This week was the first vaccine advisory board meeting since Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fired the entire panel and appointed a new one. The meeting was supposed to talk about possible recommendations for RSV vaccines and antibody shots, but those issues got pushed. Instead, the new board decided to review the federal childhood vaccination schedule. It also said it would make recommendations on measles and hepatitis B shots. This is a big deal, since whatever the board decides could influence decisions about insurance coverage and what doctors tell their patients. Already, some pediatricians have raised concerns, saying the questions being raised have long been settled. The American Academy of Pediatrics announced it would publish its own vaccine schedule for children independently of the board, calling it, quote, no longer a credible process. But the board's chair defended the work, saying we're learning more about vaccines over time and must keep up to date. Today, the panel is set to consider flu shots ahead of the annual fall vaccination campaign. Separately this week, RFK Jr. said the U.S. will no longer contribute to a global alliance that helps buy vaccines for the world's poorest children. It's called Gavi, and the secretary says it ignores safety, but didn't get into specifics. The alliance responded to say safety is key and that it always acts in line with the World Health Organization's recommendations. Before now, the U.S. had been contributing about $300 million a year. A cargo ship carrying 3,000 new vehicles sank off the coast of Alaska this week. Crew members abandoned the ship weeks ago when they couldn't extinguish an onboard fire. It ended up burning for 3 weeks before sinking. And now that the ship has sank, it's going to be tough to figure out what caused that fire. Some people have speculated the electric vehicles on board could be to blame, since those batteries are highly flammable. But investigations are still underway. Salvage crews with pollution control equipment are also staying out there for now, watching for any signs of pollution or debris. One of the richest couples in the world is getting married this week, and it's being called the wedding of the century. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is marrying former TV journalist Lauren Sanchez in Venice, Italy. Their wedding is said to last several days, and the guest list is star-studded, rumored to include people like Kim Kardashian, Mick Jagger, Oprah Winfrey, Leonardo DiCaprio, and several members of the Trump family. But the couple has also been confronted by protests who have forced them to change some of the plans. There are posters and banners plastered all across the city that read, "No space for Bezos." A lot of the protesters are upset about over-tourism. This wedding is an example of that, with private jets expected to jam up Venice's airport, and private yachts are already taking over the harbor. 5 hotels have been completely booked. But other protesters have other issues. For example, a huge image of Bezos was displayed earlier this week that read, quote, "If you can rent Venice for your wedding, you can pay more tax." Because of the backlash, one of the wedding venues had to be moved away from the city center, with reports citing security concerns. Venice city officials are condemning the protests, saying high-rolling visitors like Bezos are an important source of income. The event is estimated to cost somewhere between $23 to $34 million.
More news ahead in just a moment, but first, thanks to our sponsor, Hiya Health. Even in the sometimes chaotic mornings we have trying to get our little kiddo out the door to preschool and us ready for work, there's part of our morning routine that always seems to feel kind of easy. And that's time for our morning vitamins. My 3-year-old is always thrilled to get his Hiya Children's vitamins and probiotic and take them every day. He loves the flavor and the routine of it. And I feel good that he's taking them since they're formulated with the help of pediatricians and nutritional experts to help support his immunity, energy, brain function, mood, his developing body, and more. And if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. And we've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website. So go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now, back to the news.
Wall Street has seen another major turnaround lately. In fact, the S&P 500 is now on the cusp of a record high. It's the latest development in a wild ride for the stock market, which tumbled into correction in March and then got close to a bear market in April. The S&P 500 recouped its losses last month, and it's up more than 3.5% since then. Investors mostly credit a ceasefire in the Middle East that's been holding so far. But there's still a lot that's up in the air, and not just with the ceasefire. Investors are still waiting to hear developments about tariffs, interest rates, the federal deficit, and what President Trump is calling his one big beautiful bill, all of which could greatly impact the economy. To be continued. NATO leaders agreed to step up their defense spending. Remember, President Trump has insisted for years that Europe needs to contribute more money so they rely less on American protection. And now NATO allies have agreed to a goal of everyone spending 5% of their national income on defense over the next decade. That's up from the 2% target that's been in place. Of course, the question now is whether each member nation actually reaches the target, since in the past, some didn't even make the 2%. Either way, President Trump has hailed the commitment as a triumph, saying NATO is no longer a ripoff. There's now a record number of American renters facing significant money issues. That's according to Harvard's yearly State of the Nation's Housing report that came out this week. It found the number of renters spending more than the recommended 30% of their income on housing hit an all-time high, and that more than 12 million people are spending at least half of their income on rent. Of course, a lot of the problem is that rents just keep going up. Harvard says they grew 32% from 2019 to 2025. The apartment industry argues it's up against its own cost struggles, like higher insurance premiums, more expensive materials and labor. Either way, it looks like the trend of rising rents could be slowing. And as the saying goes, all real estate is local, meaning there are plenty of places where dollars stretch further, just not in top metro areas. The dating app Bumble is firing almost a third of its workforce in what seems to be a trend for the dating industry. The company's chief executive says the board approved the cuts to rebuild a company that's ready for the next decade. It comes as Bumble has struggled to make money, and its stock has lost 90% of its value since going public in 2021. Reports say the issue is younger users are growing frustrated and abandoning online dating, and most of those who are still into online dating don't want to pay for it. With that, other industry leaders like Match and Tinder have faced similar hurdles, and Match said it was cutting 13% of jobs last month. So the companies are trying some new approaches. For example, Tinder is rolling out a double date feature, and Bumble is planning to put a stronger emphasis on using artificial intelligence to find matches. It looks like Disney World has plans to open a whole new kingdom. There are already 4: Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom. And now, a new long-term blueprint from the district that oversees the theme park shows Disney has carved out 400 to 500 acres for a possible mega park and 2 smaller ones, likely water parks. They could all roll out over the coming decades. The plan also details land reserved for more hotels, commercial spaces, entertainment zones, and Disney's famously secret underground tunnels. So all in all, this would be more than 2,600 more acres of Disney World. Granted, nothing is set in stone, and so far, no official announcement from the Mouse House. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday.
But first, thanks to our sponsor, OneSkin. Did you know that part of skincare is scalp care? And of course, our scalp impacts the growth and health of our hair. Just like the rest of your body, the scalp experiences cellular aging. But instead of wrinkles, it messes with your hair follicles and natural growth cycle. So since the scalp is skin, I'm turning to the company I already love for my skincare, OneSkin. OS1 is the first scalp serum powered by OneSkin's OS1 peptide, which targets those aging cells. It's scientifically proven to help your hair cells do what they're meant to do: grow fuller, denser, healthier hair with OneSkin's OS1 hair. I've already started using it with the OS1 Hair Derma Roller, which feels like a mini head massage, and it's meant to supercharge the scalp treatment. Founded and led by an all-women team of skin longevity scientists, OneSkin is redefining the aging process with their proprietary OS1 peptide. Get 15% off with our code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin and scalp with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you.
Now back to Thing to Know Thursday. It was exactly 10 years ago today that a landmark Supreme Court ruling legalized same-sex marriage all around the U.S. Before that, the status of committed gay relationships really depended on the state. Some states allowed domestic partnerships or civil unions for same-sex couples. Others declared marriage could only exist between one man and one woman. But now, because of the ruling on June 26, 2015, states cannot deny marriage to same-sex couples. Still, not everyone is happy about it. Some Republican lawmakers have called for the Supreme Court to reconsider its decision, and one justice, Clarence Thomas, has expressed interest in doing so. If Congress were to pass a law that actually codified marriage equality into a federal statute, the High Court would not be able to overturn it. But for now, it's not something Congress is considering. And more than 24 states have some kind of restriction on same-sex marriage that would go into effect if the Supreme Court did act. Still, the majority of Americans support gay marriage, at least legally. This year, a Gallup survey found about 7 in 10 Americans think same-sex marriages should be recognized by law. And as of now, there's nothing getting in the way of same-sex couples tying the knot. Since the 2015 ruling, UCLA says nearly 600,000 gay couples have gotten married.
Thank you so much for listening today and bearing with us as we tried using AI to sort of fix my very hoarse voice by turning it into someone else. I hope to have my regular voice back ASAP. But either way, we'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.